We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us on the Monday. We're talking media and politics, and we can go beyond that, the whole fake news concept and the like. With us is Professor Larry Burriss from over at MTSU. It's good to have him on.
Good to be here.
Thanks for coming, sir. And I think we have one of your former students on.
Okay.
Nice. How about let's go to Representative Mike Sparks. Representative, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, good morning, Nick, and I want to compliment you for having Dr. Larry Burriss on. I think the world of him, and he's probably the most knowledgeable of the First Amendment, which is the basis of our democracy, and it's allowing you to speak and interview him, allowing me to speak and speak my mind. And you know, I took his class, finishing my degree a couple of years ago. I really didn't want to take it, but I needed the credit. And after I took it, now I know why I took it, because I've seen what the media has done this past year, not only to elected officials, including myself, which they do distort the news, whether we call it fake or false or lack of reporting. Case in point, just this year I recognized a pastor who wrote a book about history, about a man's Christian redemptive story, and got crucified for it by the media. And Senator Thelma Harper and I run a resolution recognizing Tennessee's truancy problem, which is extremely high, with the 9th worst in the nation, and the lack of fathers in families. I mean, you have a right-wing Republican like myself and a Democrat senator. Shouldn't that make news? Yet it doesn't. If we could get a hold of those problems, maybe we could improve society. The media today is looking for sound bites and looking for cheap shots. And I'd like to hear your comments on that, Nick.
Well, I think he makes a point there. It's true. Unfortunately, the media looking for, I don't know if it's cheap shots, but we certainly look for the sensational headline. And that story you talked about with him and Thelma Harper, two different people with different takes on things, addressing a very important issue, truancy. Now, I don't know what happened with that story. I don't know if it didn't get the coverage it deserved. But yeah, you wonder sometimes if, very, important stories like that are ignored in lieu of, more and more sensationalism, which look, we're all victim to that, I'm afraid.
Broadcasting is a business. Unfortunately, I mean, you got to make money, and money comes from audiences and advertisers. And so at some level, you do have to appeal to the audiences. And one of the issues we discuss is, should we in media, should we be giving audiences what they need, or should we be giving them what they want?
But then people are going to say, too, who are we to decide what they need?
Exactly right.
And that's fair. I mean, who am I to say what, Representative Sparks needs, even though I think, we should cover the social issues in the community you live in, right?
How many social issues can you cover in a half hour?
Yeah, right. But I mean, I want to know about stuff going on, if they're going to put a dump down the road from me, or if they're, passing some new zoning here and there, things like that. But that's boring for people. Now, what's exciting, or what is something that's more compelling? For instance, you were just talking about how anyone can shoot anything. Sometimes it's worthwhile, sometimes it's not. And this video this past weekend that we got hold of on Saturday of that hit and run on Natchez Trace. By now, most everyone's probably seen it. Heck, Mary, if you can find it, you can let me know and we'll run it again and show folks. This was GoPro video shot by a cyclist as one of his friends is hit by a hit and run driver, and now it's everywhere. Now, what is that an example of? He posted it on Facebook. It was forwarded to me. I went with it, and then afterwards, all the media has it. Now it's on CBS Morning News this morning.
Well, it's on CBS and NBC and ABC and CNN. It's on those, but it's being distributed by individuals. It's that audience that is distributing that video across Facebook and all the other social media. Why are they doing that? Why is Joe Smith, who works in a factory or as a teacher, why is he putting that video on his Facebook page? Why is he distributing it? And that's what's happening. There's a limited number of media out there that are distributing this stuff, and apparently people must like it. They're distributing it. They're sending it out there to millions of other people, and that's saying, if I'm a media manager, I'm saying, boy, people really like this video. I better get it on the news. I better get it out there as a small segment of the news, certainly because it's of interest to the public. And if the public likes it, we in the media have to say, we have to respond to that.
Respond. And this, I would argue, is certainly a worthwhile media story. It's not just gratuitous to see this poor guy get hit and knocked off. It raises all kinds of questions about who the suspect was, which they've since made an arrest. Raises questions about the safety of bicycles sharing the roadway with cars, which is a whole other issue, and what the laws are. So that was worthwhile, but you do wonder sometimes too. I mean, when I got hold of that video, I had to do some vetting, because in this day and age with technology, could that have been created in someone's computer and passed out as something real, and then does the media fall for it and run it? I mean, I did some vetting, talked to some people, I had to get the permission and all this, and then we found out the police were investigating. But until then, I mean, that's sent out. People can just grab it and throw it on the air, and you could get duped. In fact, people have been duped.
And you just have to be careful. You have to see both sides. And I'm kind of curious about that particular story. How many other people, how many other bicycle riders are hit in the average day?
Oh, yeah.
I bet it's not just one, but the fact that we had video of this made it a story. Sure.
Oh, absolutely. I would never have known about this. I don't know, since the guy wasn't seriously hurt, they didn't get a license plate visually on their own. Would they have even reported it? Maybe. And would that be a report we'd even take note of? No.
Probably not.
Thankfully, the guy wasn't seriously hurt. Are we going to report a guy gets bumped, has some bruises on Natchez Trace, and it just doesn't reach the threshold? No. But with the video, and we can help catch the guy responsible, you bet we do.
Sure. And that's part of public. We could turn this around and talk about public service. The fact that you aired it means that hundreds of thousands of people now have seen that car.
Right.
And the possibility is somebody, well, they already arrested the guy.
Yeah, they already got the guy.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
No, but that's a good point. And, and public service is part of what we don't want to do the job for law enforcement, but if we can be of an assistance when they send out a picture, the surveillance video all the time, of course we'll run that. Right. Let's go to Grady. Grady, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Hey, Grady.
Buster, Larry. You know, fake news, I tell people every time I see Donald Trump open his mouth, he's fixing to lie. But, you know, John F. Kennedy, when he was killed, we got it hushed up for 100 years. In 1952, when we had aliens supposedly land in out west, you know, and I just found out recently that we used U.S. airplanes to bomb striking coal miners in tents in West Virginia, and that was when Hatfield, the old Hatfield McCoy was governor. And, you know, I was appalled by that. But last week, 102 people shot in Chicago, 15 people of that 102 died. You know, we've got to know what's going on, where it's going on. And thanks to Channel 5, of course, when we recognized George Bush's military record, we lost a great reporter on CBS. And I'll hang up with y'all's comments this morning. Just listening to him, I'm wondering, what we're dealing with now, because he talked about past case, is what we're seeing now with the media and the fake news. I know it's more amplified, but have there not been similar episodes in U.S. history where this kind of stuff is kind of, a lot of people think, well, this is the first time, and it's a threat to democracy when you go after the media in this way, or we don't understand what the truth is. But has not this happened before? It's
been going on forever. Camelot during the Kennedy administration was not Camelot. I mean, there were bad things going on there. The Nixon administration, Ron Ziegler, and, well, that statement is no longer operative. It's been going on for a long, long time. It's magnified more, and I think people are taking more of an interest, or at least they're more involved in the process. Whereas before, we just kind of let the government, the media do what they did. We sort of brushed them off. We listen to the news, we watch the news, you read the news. Well, now I think people are much more involved, trying to figure out, well, what you said was wrong.
Yeah.
Or I disagree with what you said, therefore what you said was wrong. And I did a study a few years ago, went to news magazines and picked ordinary people, not politicians, ordinary people, and called them and said, did the magazine quote you correctly? Most of the people said no. The quote was, now, I then said what was wrong with it, and they said, well, I talked for a long time and they only ran 2 sentences. And then we asked, well, was the sentence reflective of what you believe? And they said, yes, the sentence was correct, it was accurate, but it was wrong because they didn't run the entire quote. Yeah. So the public, I think, has a different idea of what the truth is, and as we try to run this set of facts or that set of facts, if you disagree with them, then it's wrong.
That's a great point. And I think that the key on that question when you ask them is, if they only took a snippet, did they take it out of context? What it is by just taking a portion. And you know what, Professor? I've done interviews in TV news where I, for whatever reason, end up interviewing someone for maybe up to 10 minutes. Sure. That's a long interview for me. And I'll almost always end up saying, just so you know, sir, I will take nothing out of context, but I just interviewed you for 10 minutes, and I'm going to interview a couple other people, and the story when it airs tonight on the Nightly News is going to be 2 minutes, if that. So I want you to recognize I'm not going to be able to use everything you gave me, but what I do use will not be out of context, but I don't want you to be disappointed and say, and I've said this to people, because I can tell sometimes when they're like, gosh, you got a lot of good stuff from me, and I'm like, just so you know, I'm only going to use a portion of it. I actually go to that length to tell them that, and I try to promise them that even though I'm only using a snippet, I will do my very best not to take it out of context, but I don't want you to be disappointed that I left all these other comments that you felt were so good out. I only have 2 minutes.
I bet if you called those people up after the newscast and asked, was the quote correct, they would say no. And if you ask them, does the quote reflect what you said, they'll say, yes, it did, but it was still wrong.
Yeah, you might be right. Now, because what you described there has happened to me. That's one reason I started doing this with those long interviews, because what you said. And I've actually gone back a couple times after I gave them fair warning and took pains to make sure it wasn't out of context. And they said, well, of course, Nick, I was disappointed you couldn't use more, but what you used was accurate. And that's what I got. Whereas in the past, when I wouldn't give them that heads up, and they had different expectations, and I'd call them or they'd call me angry, it was different. And so that's why I've started doing that sometimes, is just letting them know. And it did make a difference for me, Professor. You may be right, but on some of them, they were disappointed, but they said, thank you for giving me the heads up on that, and what you used was accurate, and I appreciated that. So it was worth the extra effort, but you're right on the numbers. People, you know, you talk to them a long time, and TV news biz, unfortunately, is a soundbite biz. That's why shows like this are great. You're not just getting a snippet from the good professor. You're getting his entire thought. So here, we'll take a break. When we come back, Anthony, Brian, Lucy, and others, stay there. The line's open, 737-7587. Your thoughts just on the fake news, the media, the politics. If you want to ask a question about how we do things here at News Channel 5, compliment or criticism, we'll take you right after this.